Hi. So today I thought I would sit down and talk to you guys about my pregnancy with my son. So this is the pregnancy that resulted from my 6th round of IUI, and it was technically my 2nd pregnancy. At some point I will do a video talking about my first pregnancy, which did end in an ectopic pregnancy, or what they officially called a presumed ectopic, and a miscarriage, because that's a whole thing. But today I'm going to talk about my pregnancy in 2019 with my son Harry. So like I said, it was my 6th round of IUI. It was my last round of IUI. In my, I think it was my cost of IUI video, I talked about the fact that my insurance company did require me to do 6 rounds of IUI paid by me completely. And then if none of those 6 rounds worked, they would start covering IVF or another procedure. But for me, that was going to be IVF. So I did not go into the 6th round really positive. I did not go in thinking this is going to work, I'm going to get pregnant. I guess at this point I was really hardened because I had had a loss already, and you know, 6 rounds of IUI over 9 months is a long time, and it's a lot to go through. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I was very physically, mentally, emotionally drained going into that IUI, especially because your cycle starts on the first day of your period. So the first day of my period with this pregnancy was March 1st, 2019. And that was the day that I was going in for a pregnancy test for my 5th round. And, you know, I was all excited. I still had so much hope. And then the morning of that pregnancy test, before I got in my car, like literally I was getting in my car after I went to the bathroom, I went into the bathroom and I had gotten my period. So I still had to go to the doctor's appointment. I had to get the blood draw, and they had to call and tell me I wasn't pregnant, but I knew I wasn't. And I cried the whole way at the doctor's appointment, or the doctor's office, which was no fun. So, you know, they called me, they said, sorry, you're not pregnant. I said, I know, I got my period before I walked into the office. Let's start this again. So at that point, my 4th and 5th rounds, I had been on 50 milligrams, micrograms, whatever it is, I think it's milligrams, of Clomid for those 2 rounds. And my doctor decided to up me for this last round. He's like, we're gonna try it. So I was on 100 milligrams of Clomid for my last round of IUI. And I think I said this before in a video, I was really lucky. I did not have any reactions to Clomid. Knock on wood, thank God. It really worked out for me. It was fine. I felt good on it. So I was up to 2 pills a night for 5 nights. And I want to say that was days 3 to 8 of my cycle. And then it was somewhere around March 11th. It was like the 11th or the 12th. I went in for my first blood and ultrasound. And I had a couple good follicles growing, but I had a really good one on my right ovary. So it was kind of the one to watch. And I went in 2 days later on March 14th, I believe. It was Thursday the 14th. And we did the blood and ultrasound, and the follicle on my right had gotten to 19 millimeters. And like I said in one of my previous videos, you have to have it over a certain size, and like 18 to like 20 something is kind of the ideal. So mine being at 19 on March 14th was perfect. It was great. And my doctor's office called and they were like, all right, you're ready. We're going to do the trigger shot tonight. And you're coming in tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. And I used to work at 10:30 on Fridays at the job I was doing when I got pregnant. And it's more than a half-hour drive, not including the time for IUI. It's more than a half-hour drive from the doctor's office to my work. So I was like, crap, how am I going to do this? I can't get in earlier. I'm just going to be late to work. And I was. So my mom did the trigger shot for me the night before on the 14th. Just because I'm afraid of needles, I can't give myself a shot. It really freaks me out. It's one of the things I can't do. And the morning of the 15th, I went to the doctor's appointment, and I'm the kind of person, I love holidays. So obviously St. Patrick's Day that year was Sunday the 17th, and I was going to work on Friday, and you know, I had to wear my St. Patrick's Day clothes. So I walked into this doctor's appointment at the clinic in like a shamrock green skirt and a sweater and everything but like my ears, because I have like headband ears for different holidays. So I walked in basically wearing everything but that for St. Patrick's Day. And you know, my son is very much a good luck. You know, he's my lucky charm. He's my good luck in life. So I think St. Patrick's Day was shining on me. But I went in and I did that IUI. It went off without a hitch. It was easy. You know, none of my IUIs were especially hard or painful or anything like that, which was always great. And then I looked at the clock and I had like 10 minutes to get to work, and I was like, crap, I'm not going to get there in time. So I texted my boss and I told her that my car broke down and I was waiting for AAA. Yeah. But I did actually make it to work in like half an hour, so I wasn't too late. And I just got there and, you know, had a normal day. And then the next couple weeks, you know, the dreaded 2-week wait, I very much went into this because I was so pessimistic about being pregnant or, you know, this last round working. I really thought that I was going to end up moving on to IVF. I think my doctor thought so too, because he set up a meeting for us during that 2-week wait. I think it was like the very beginning of the second week. He had me and my mom come into his office, and he showed me like this whole slideshow of IVF, and he like laid it all out for me. He had his financial department talk to me, and then their clinic, that specific clinic that I went to, they do like training modules. So they have like an online patient portal, and you go on and the doctor has like assigned you different like training stuff to do to get prepped for whatever option you're going with. So he had already assigned me the IVF like training modules. So I went on and I like started taking them, and I think there was like 7 of them or something, and I did like half of them. And I was like, you know what? I just can't do any more of them right now. Let's get through to the negative and I'll take the rest of them. So, you know, I wasn't very positive. I didn't feel like I was pregnant. I also didn't feel like my period was coming. And I remember saying that to my mom and my best friend a couple times. It was like, I don't think it worked this time. I really don't. But I also like, I think my period's going to be late. And of course, that's my luck, isn't it? When I'm about to start IVF, that my period will be late. Little did I know. So the day comes, and it is Friday, March 29th at this point. That's the day, the end of my 2-week wait. I go in, I have the blood work done, to the pregnancy test done. And I didn't know what to think. You know, I was still very much in the mindset that it's not going to work this time. I'm just supposed to get an IVF baby. And I think during that time, I had very much made peace with that. And I think that's why I'm so okay and at peace at this point with the fact that my next children are going to be IVF babies, is that I saw the pluses of it. I saw the fact that it was, you know, insurance covered for me, and it was something that you're retrieving multiple eggs. And for me, it was almost like, well, I know the percentage chances that I can get pregnant on so many rounds. There's a whole math problem to it. If you're interested in that, I will do a video talking about my IVF journey so far, because I'm in very early stages of it right now. But, you know, I would do the math and I would be like, well, if we get this many, I'll get this many kids. And for me, that was, I'm a planner. So that was very like, at least with IVF, I'll know how many kids I'm having and I'll know how to plan out my life. So I was really starting to see the benefits, I guess, of going forward with IVF. And I had very much kind of just thrown this IUI cycle in as a wash. So when they called me at work on Friday, March 29th, and the nurse was like, congratulations, you're pregnant. Your HCG level is, I want to say it was like 237, something like that. It was like mid 200s. I made her repeat it. I was like, wait, what? Are you sure? And she's like, yeah, like that's a good, strong pregnancy. We'll have you come in on Monday and repeat your labs to make sure the levels are going up. And I had to walk out of my office at that point. I worked at a place where, you know, you have a badge to get in. So I took my badge, I took my cell phone, and I walked out of the door. And I was never someone to like leave the building during work. So I got some weird looks and I was on the verge of tears at that point. And I went outside and I called my mom and I just cried. And I told her I was pregnant, and I texted my best friend who is a nurse and she works overnights. So she was asleep. And I texted her, and I'm sorry for the language, I texted her, wake up, bitch, I'm pregnant. And yeah, I called my mom, I called my dad, I called my brother, and I told my best friend. And that was kind of it that knew at that point. And it was a very long weekend for me, knowing I was pregnant, and I didn't want to tell any of my family until I had the second blood test and saw what my levels were. And then I was only going to tell my two aunts that I'm really close with and my cousin that I'm close with. So it was a long weekend. It was, I think the 2 days of that weekend were longer than my 2-week wait. But I went in to the doctor's office, and I think I've said this before, it was the phlebotomist who took my blood that has always taken my blood, including the first time I found out I was pregnant. And she saw the smile on my face, and I said to her, you know, it was positive on Friday and I think I'm pregnant. And she was so happy for me, and that was an amazing thing. So she took my blood, and they called me later that day, and they want your levels. My understanding is they want your levels from like the 2-week wait blood test day to like the 2 or 3 days later to go up a little bit. I think they want them to double, but I'm not 100% sure on that, so don't quote me on it. But they definitely want them moving up. My numbers more than tripled. My levels were, actually they like quadrupled, I guess, thinking about it, almost quadrupled. I was at almost 1,000, or just over 1,000. So they were climbing. And that's when I told my two aunts and my cousin. And one of my aunts did IVF. She has twins who are my age from IVF. And she said, those levels are really high for really early. Could they be twins? And then I started freaking out because twins scare me. I don't know that I could handle them. Like my best friend right now is pregnant with twins. This is a side note. She's pregnant with twins. She's doing a couple months, and I'm so glad it's her, not me, because I couldn't handle two. Anyway, so yeah, then the doctors scheduled my clinic. You stay with them till the first ultrasound. So my first ultrasound was at 7 weeks and 6 days. So it was a Thursday. It was April 29th. So I went back into their office, and again, my mom went with me. She met me there from her work because she wanted to see the baby. And I got my first ultrasound picture of my son, and I'll insert it here. Editing Maria right here. And he was beautiful. Like, you know, you're looking at this picture and you're probably thinking, oh, it's an ultrasound. But when it's your own, like, I cried having that ultrasound done and hearing his heartbeat. And it was the ultrasound tech who had done all of my IUI ultrasounds. So she was with me, and she saw me crying, and she's like, don't cry, you're gonna make me cry. And yeah, it was just a really, really emotional thing. And even thinking about that day, you know, the first time I saw my baby, it was incredible. And I was really lucky. You know, this was 8 weeks, and I had not had any morning sickness, and I did not through my pregnancy. I never threw up once. I had nausea on a pretty regular basis, but I never got sick. So I was never morning sick. I was morning nauseous. So it was, at that point, it was a really easy pregnancy. But yeah, I was really lucky in that. What I wasn't lucky in, the dramatic moment of my pregnancy, a week after my ultrasound, so I was 8 weeks and 6 days, almost 9 weeks, I got out of my car at work, and I stood up, and I felt like a gush. And the only thing I can attest it to is like when you have your period and you like stand up after sitting down or after laying down, and you just feel the blood rush. And I panicked. I really did. I stood there for a minute, and I'm like, maybe I just peed myself. Like, pregnant women do that. Maybe I just peed myself. It's fine. I can handle that. I'll deal with it. It wasn't. I clenched everything together, and I walked into the building, and I went to the bathroom, and there was so much blood. And at this point, I'm crying my eyes out in the bathroom at work. No one knows I'm pregnant. I called my mom. She's like, don't talk to me, talk to the doctor, like, and I'll meet you there. So I called my doctor. I had officially kind of been released from my fertility clinic because after your first ultrasound, they release you to an OB. But my first OB appointment wasn't until the next week. So I was very much in limbo. This was like the worst week for this to happen. So I called the fertility clinic, and I said, this is what's happening. I'm bleeding. What do I do? And they told me to come in. They had an ultrasound that I could go to, and they were in like this big building. It wasn't like a hospital, but was like a medical office building. And one floor up, there was like an ultrasound clinic, because their ultrasound tech, I guess, wasn't there that day. So I go, I meet my mom there. The ultrasound tech there was at lunch, so I had to wait like 25 minutes. I should backtrack for a sec. I had to then tell my boss that I was pregnant so I could leave. So I went to her office. She was in a meeting with someone. I'm crying. I probably had blood on me. I don't even know. And I knocked on her office door, and I'm like, I'm really sorry. I need to meet with you. It's an emergency. And I'm like, I need to tell you, I'm 9 weeks pregnant. I'm bleeding, and I need to get to a hospital. And she's like, well, do you want someone to drive you? I said, no. I'll go. I'm going to meet my mom there. I need to go now. I'm sorry. And I ran. And I prayed. I am not a religious person. I think my pregnancies have given me some faith, I guess, in a way, but I would not consider myself religious, and I prayed the whole way to the doctor's office. I got to the office, the ultrasound tech was on lunch, so I had to wait. My mom met me there, and I'm just crying in the waiting room. They finally take us in, they do an ultrasound, they find his heartbeat. I've never been so relieved of something in my entire life. I can't even explain it to you. And she showed me him, and he looked perfect. He looked fine. I ended up having a hematoma, which is just a bleed in my uterus. And they told me it could let go again during the pregnancy, but they showed it to me like on the ultrasound, like in my uterus. If he's over here, it was like up here. It was separate from him, which was great. I lived in constant fear that it was going to start again, and thank God it didn't. I never bled again in my pregnancy, but that was a terrifying experience that I would not wish on anyone. Oh my God. That was so scary. And so I did the ultrasound, then I went downstairs to the fertility clinic, and I talked to the doctor there, who wasn't my doctor, but she was great. And she definitely relieved my anxiety. She told me he looked fine. At this point, we didn't know he was a he, but she said, baby looks fine. And she explained the hematoma to me and kind of released me. She said, if it happens again, come back, we'll do this again. So thankfully it didn't. And the next week, the following Thursday, it was just Thursdays, I had my first appointment with my OB, and she was a new OB to me. She was great. I love her. To this day, I love her. And the whole office was great, to the point that my friend who's pregnant, I sent her to them. So she goes there now. And I don't know, it was, other than that kind of hematoma experience, I had a really great, really uneventful pregnancy. This is when part of the title comes in. So if you look at the title, this says my pregnancy story as a single mom by choice, IUI, and a bariatric surgery patient. So it's not something I think I'm going to talk about a lot on this channel, but it does relate to my pregnancy. I had weight loss surgery when I was 14, and I had, at that point, I had what's called a sleeve gastrectomy, or a gastric sleeve. And when I was 21, I had that sleeve revised to what is called a duodenal switch, or a duodenal switch. And the DS, it's very malabsorptive. That's the word. It's a very malabsorptive surgery. So I only get about 30% of the nutrients that I eat. So I have to be really careful about what I eat, and I only absorb a very small portion of it. The rest of it comes out of my body. So because of that surgery, I was considered not high risk, but a higher risk. The surgery combined with the fact that I still do have obesity, even with this surgery. So I was monitored really closely during my pregnancy. I had monthly ultrasounds, which I'm definitely not complaining about. I got so many amazing ultrasounds of my son that I really cherish. And because I'm an anxious person, I really loved seeing him and knowing he was okay. But they did monitor me really closely, and that was an experience in itself. I did have to go to my hospital's maternal fetal medicine for those monitorings. And yeah, it was just to make sure he was getting enough nutrients and he was growing. They told me to expect a smaller baby because of it. Newsflash, that didn't happen. But yeah, they definitely that. And because I also have a family history of preeclampsia. My mom had it, and They thought I might develop it. My mom's was so bad. She was on bed rest with me for about 4 months, 4 to 5 months before she gave birth to me 3 weeks early. So we thought that I was going to potentially develop preeclampsia and also almost definitely give birth a couple weeks early. I genuinely thought my due date was December 6th. I should probably say that at some point. Yeah, my son was due on Friday, December 6th, and I was wholeheartedly convinced that I would be giving birth on November 19th. Nothing could have told me I wasn't gonna have a November baby. I truly believed I was. And to the point that my mom and I love the number 19. We're both born on 19, so it just made sense to me that he was going to be. And my mom even talked to my stomach in November and offered him money to come out on the 19th. That didn't happen. He is a December baby. But yeah, so I was monitored really closely, and I'm glad I was. I'm glad that they were so on top of it. My family has a lot of health issues. I was also monitored, let's see, this was August 1st, so I was 20 something weeks pregnant. They had me go into the hospital and have a fetal echocardiogram. So they looked at his heart and to make sure his heart was okay, because heart disease runs really rampant in my family. My mom has heart disease, my brother has heart disease, and my mom actually lost a baby to heart disease. So, and that's something, I don't know if I ever mentioned it, but I did see a genetic specialist, and one of the tests he ran said that I have a variant of uncertain significance on one of my genes related to heart disease. So we definitely wanted to make sure, especially after we found out my son was a boy, because heart disease runs mostly in the men in my family. We definitely wanted to make sure he was okay. And thank God his heart was perfect. They were not worried about him at all. And they kept doing the ultrasounds. So that was really amazing. It wasn't a hard experience, and he actually cooperated, which was rare for him because he's a very stubborn guy. Even in utero, he was very stubborn. And I am talking a little out of order. I did find out he was a boy early. I did one of those blood tests, and I got the results. Like, it told me chromosomally he was normal, and then it told me he was an XY. He was a male baby, which was crazy to me. I thought he was a girl. I definitely, complete transparency here, I've always wanted a daughter. Still do. I still really hope to have a daughter one day. But something in me just told me this baby was a girl. So my mom even thought it was. Like, nothing could have convinced me he was a boy. And then I got the blood test. I'm like, really? Really? It was baffling to me. And because of the heart disease in my family, I was really scared for him. I really was. I had such a fear, especially after my ectopic. I had such a fear of losing a baby again, and especially this baby that I was so in love with and so attached to now. I couldn't lose him. So that really scared me, and I knew I needed the echo. I talked to my doctor about it, and I said, this is a boy. We need to do this. And we did, and he was perfect, and that was amazing. And other than those little things, my pregnancy was really great and really uneventful, and I was so lucky. I gained very little weight in my pregnancy. I gained like 15 to 20 pounds in only the second half of my pregnancy. I gained nothing up until like 21, 22 weeks. And really the second half of my pregnancy, the worst thing I experienced was that my son was very low. He liked to sit very low across my hips and in my pelvis. So my hips were in a lot of pain, and I very much developed a pregnant woman waddle by 30 weeks. I was waddling so bad. It hurt so much. And to this day, my hips are actually really bad a year later, almost a year later. Wow. My hips are still really bad because of my pregnancy and birth experience. But he was worth it. And when, mid-November, end of November came around and I still hadn't given birth, my doctor, considering, my high riskness because of my weight, she told me that, in her opinion, so, this is my doctor's recommendation, that it was safer for him and healthier for him to come before his due date versus after. So she said if I had not given birth by the week of my due date, we were going to induce. There was a medical necessity for that, obviously, and I was very much okay with that. So she let me pick the day that I was induced. It had to be a weekday, and it could not be 39 weeks because my 39-week day, which was Friday, November, I want to say 29th, 28th. November 28th was a Friday. That was Black Friday. And I guess the hospital treated it like a holiday, and there wasn't enough staff there for me to be induced. So I had to wait till Monday, and that was Monday, December 2nd. So now I'm going to talk about my birth story, because where I left off, I was saying I was induced, medical necessity induction, on Monday, December 2nd, 2019. So I went in on that morning. I think it was like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. By 8:30, they had me in the room and they were storing the induction medication. Because of a combination of my size and the fact that my son was sitting so low, I could not get up and walk during my labor, which really sucked. I wanted to be up and moving and move things along, but the only way that they could keep tabs on his heartbeat and his heart rate, which they needed to do with the induction, was for me to be laying on my side. So I was laying on my hips. And like I said in the last video, my hips were already messed up from my pregnancy. So laboring on my hips was very painful. And my labor in total time went from like 8:30 at the start of induction to 12:22 when my son was born in the morning on December 3rd. My labor was 16 hours total, which I didn't think was bad. And honestly, it was not a bad labor. It was very slow goings at the beginning from the induction. It was from like 8:30 in the morning to 12:30 was very, very slow. They finally got me far enough. I went into the hospital at like 2 centimeters. They finally got me, I think I was 4 centimeters, and they broke my water at like 12:30 in the afternoon. Dude, if you've never had your water broken, seen your water break, anything like that, I didn't know there was that much water in me as a person. There was literally a pond under my bed. It was crazy. It was so much water. And my mom will even tell you, when the doctor came in to do my epidural, I had to sit on the edge of the bed. So you're sitting on the edge of the bed, you're like really far forward, and the water is still just leaking out of me, that the doctor standing behind me doing the epidural was standing in a puddle. Craziest thing in the world. But I had the epidural probably a couple hours after they broke my water. It was like 1:30, 2:30, somewhere in there. I did want to wait till I was farther along, but I was already, one, stuck in the hospital bed. I could not get up anyway. And two, I was in a lot of pain. The best thing about them breaking my water and then me having the epidural, though, was that they could take the heart monitor belt off of me, and they could put a probe directly on my son's head to keep track of his blood and heart rate and things. So you never think that sounds like a good idea to have the probes inside of you, but I would much rather that than the belt, in all honesty, because they kept losing him with the belts and I had to keep my hand on it because he's stubborn. And I just labored, and I slept a little bit. It was a very easy labor. It was very chill until probably 11:30 at night. Somewhere around 11:30, I started shivering and shaking. I've never in my life shaken, like my hand was like this, like crazy shaking. My teeth were chattering. My whole body was cold, and I begged the nurse for blankets, and this nurse was not the nicest person. I had some great nurses during labor. Just this one, she was like, if you're cold and you have a fever, we're going to take the baby away from you when he's born, and we have to like monitor him separately because you can't get him sick. So I start like crying my eyes out, thinking they're going to take my baby away. So my mom yelled at the nurse. My mom was the person in with me during labor, and she was a trooper through the whole thing too. They, you know, I'm crying. My mom's yelling at the nurse, and I finally said, you know what? I want my doctor here. I want her to check me because I want to do something. I was told I could not have a C-section because of my obesity, because of my skin. It would have opened me up to more infection just because I have layers of skin and fat, that it would have been more dangerous for me to have an open wound. So we were trying to avoid a C-section at all costs. And I said to the nurse, I'm like, I don't think we're doing enough to avoid a C-section. Get me the doctor. So the doctor comes in and she's like, can I check? And I said, go ahead. At this point, it's probably almost midnight. It's probably like midnight or right before. And she checks me and she's like, oh, you're at 10 centimeters. And she had been checking me a couple times throughout, but the last time she had checked me was probably like 7 p.m., maybe before then. And at that point, I wasn't even 7 centimeters. And she's like, oh, you're at 10. And the nurse didn't believe her. And the doctor's like, look, baby's right there. So the doctor left the room, which I did not know was a thing, but apparently the doctor leaves the room until they have to physically catch the baby. And, you know, you can be pushing for hours. So then doctor's not going to sit between your legs for hours. So it's my mom holding one leg, my nurse holding the other, and I'm pushing. And I pushed for 11 minutes. I pushed 8 times, and the doctor almost did not catch my son. When I started pushing, I should also mention, I did have an epidural. Like I said, my epidural did not completely work. My epidural only worked on one half of my body, and I could feel the really hard contractions, a lot of pain on the other half. It was my right half that I could feel. So they had given me a booster of the epidural at one point, and that was starting to wear off by the time I'm crying and shaking and getting ready to push. So they did give me fentanyl, a little dose of fentanyl to ease all the pain and help me push. Just as a disclaimer. So I did, that's how my son came into the world. And yeah, my mom's holding my right leg, nurse is holding the left, and I'm pushing. And they get the doctor in here, like they start panicking a little bit because he's coming really fast. And they get the doctor in here, and she's getting her gloves on, and she's like, somebody catch him. So she gets the glove on and she catches him. And he was born at 12:22 a.m. on December 3rd. They placed him on my chest, and he was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. I will put a couple pictures in. He cried, and he was 8 pounds, 11 ounces. He was 20 inches long, and he was nameless for the first probably almost 12 hours of his life. And it was just the most incredible experience. My mom was with me. She held him. I don't know. It's the best thing I've ever had happen in my life. He's the best thing. And he was just amazing. I know this is kind of anticlimactic. There's nothing dramatic here, but yeah, my birth was really easy and really amazing. And if you do have any questions or comments about that, please let me know below. If you want to share your birth story, I'd love to hear it. I love hearing birth stories because I'm kind of weird like that. And I will talk to you next time. Bye.